My first grade teacher, Mrs. Curran, came into the classroom and told us that John F. Kennedy, our president, that everyone was so proud of, had been killed. We couldn't believe our teacher was crying, but everybody cried that week. I was part of the first generation to have all of the news fed on TV in our living rooms. So we saw the marches under threat from police. We saw the fire hoses slamming the bodies against the walls. But there were very few black people in our town, so I didn't see these white on black atrocities firsthand. I was an impressionable child of about 11 when Martin Luther King was murdered. I was raised to believe that white people were the good guys, so none of this added up. Why were white people doing such bad stuff? I saw them sick attack dogs on black people in the streets, throw them in jail, hang them from trees for God's sake, although Mom tried to protect us from that. But it was there, it was in the world, it was around us. People marched through a gauntlet of policemen with clubs. Weren't the police supposed to be there to protect people? Many years later, I became friends with Reverend Dwight Brown. He was a white Unitarian Universalist minister who marched with Dr. King at Selma. He told me about walking beside a woman whose arm had been broken the day before by the police. This brave woman insisted on marching at Selma anyway, and I'm sorry that I don't remember her name. He and another man flanked her the whole way to protect her from the police that were standing there with clubs. So there were a few good white men, but why so few? I had been fed all the right moral messages, red and yellow, black and white, Jesus, It wasn't until my family moved to New Orleans at age 13 that the contradictions in what people said and what people did became really clear. I had been fed all the right moral, verbal messages, but I hadn't seen the wrongs up close. So I believed what I was told until these questions turned into gigantic red flags. Here's the message white people were told. Rich and powerful people are the real good guys. They do the heavy lifting in our culture. Now, nobody said that outright to us. They just showed us you're supposed to think the rich and powerful are cool and to fawn over them. Ordinary white people are part of the powerful team, but we don't have to do anything. We can leave that up to the rich people. All we have to do is be comfortable. And the thing that makes us most uncomfortable is how all these black people and immigrants and indigenous people keep messing things up for us and our close personal rich people who care so much about us. We would be so much better off, we were told, so much more comfortable, if not for them. So white people vote for the interests of the rich and powerful without noticing how their real interests are actually being trashed by the rich and powerful. The civil rights movement made legal changes possible, but it also triggered deep resentment. Every step forward for Black Americans was treated as a loss by white Americans, and that resentment never went away. It always went back to the same thing. Powerful people convincing the white masses that they're on the same team, and then pointing the finger of blame at black people, at indigenous people, at women, at gay people, anyone who also had no power and could be scapegoated. That is the history and the foundation of America. Nixon used law and order to signal which side he was on. Black people were just lawbreakers. Reagan targeted black mothers with that welfare queen myth, while at the same time convincing white folks that trickle-down economics would help them. It never did. It can't. It cannot work. Bush flooded black communities with those crack-era drug crackdown policies. And each generation of reframing reality added to the myth of white superiority in the minds of white people. So what I'm saying here is that white people are the ones that have been snowed through all of this. Trump said all that out loud, and millions of white people in the United States were ready to hear him. They cheered as our country crumbled under the weight of centuries of smoke and mirrors. White people deserve to be comfortable, people of color cause all our problems, and none of that is true. One share shows you care about setting the record straight. Next time, get curious. We'll talk about the Equal Rights Amendment, the Vietnam War, and how protesting itself became the enemy in the eyes of those who wanted more control. Have a good one.